Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Um, Hi everyone. My name is Patrick. And as Stephanie said, I'm a student at North Carolina State University. I'm a master's student in our college counseling and student development program here, as well as a graduate assistant with residence life at Wolfridge Apartments. So today, the goal is to get through all of this material in this session, and I feel good about it. I feel like we can do it. So I just want to give a quick introduction rationale to why this topic kind of spoke to me. Go through some learning objectives. We're going to talk about the role of helping in higher ed and student affairs. We're going to talk about some essential counseling or helping theories. We're going to talk about being a multiculturally competent helper. Then we're going to get into microcounseling / helping skills that you can use and take back to your work with students. Then we're going to see a brief demonstration. And then we're going to talk about some challenges from new helpers. And then at the end, we can debrief and we have some takeaways. We'll have time for Q&A, hopefully. That's the dream. So first, introduction and a little bit of rationale. So as I mentioned, I'm a master's student here at NC State. And while in my counseling program, I was lucky enough to be a mid-year hire to a graduate position with University Housing and Residence Life. So during my time in this position and through discussing some of the interactions I was having with students, I started to notice a difference in the way I interacted with students and the way some of my fellow grads and professionals with a more higher ed student affairs focused background, the way they interacted with students. I realized that I was using the counseling skills and techniques that I'd been developing through my coursework in a bit of a more intentional way than some of my peers. And while they had some of these skills naturally, they never really had the opportunity to formally learn and develop and implement them as a skill set in what they were doing. So this kind of sparked my interest in exploring this topic and examining helping skills from a higher ed student affairs perspective. So our learning outcomes today, ideally, I would like for everyone from the session to be able to recognize the role and importance of helping in student affairs and res life, identify essential helping theories to utilize in working with students and residents, outline the importance of being a multiculturally competent helper, and then be able to describe counseling skills and the modified 5-stage model that I'm going to show you for when you're working with students in meetings. So the role of helping in student affairs and higher education. So thinking about today's student population is primarily made up of millennials and Gen Z students. And they've really come of age in, I'm gonna say interesting time. It's the aftermath of 9/11. They dealt with a Great Recession. They've grown up with intimate and intuitive knowledge of technology that other generations really couldn't have imagined working with. And they've seen more globalization and advancement than any other time in history. So while these advancements, they've really led to a lot of advantages for today's students, there's also been another number of negative impacts, including technology stunting their social and interpersonal development, the stress of the increasing complexity and rising costs of higher education, and growing uncertainty and anxiety about these students and how they transition into the job market, looking on how they're gonna, what their future is gonna be like. And this stress and anxiety is combined with a greater willingness by these generations to reach out for help than those before. And this has created a mental health crisis on college campuses that we see today in our work. Ooh. So keeping in mind the generational makeup of the students we work with, mental health concerns are just increasingly common and a more problematic issue on campuses. So studies of college students, they found significantly high levels of mental health concerns, including anxiety, depression, PTSD, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation and behavior, among many other issues. The difficulties faced by students have a powerful effect on their ability to cope, connect with others, and achieve their academic goals. So these are just some statistics from the U.S. Department of Education on mental health in college students. And I'm going to hit a few of these, but keep in mind, all of these are also before the pandemic. So everything mentioned on this slide, all these statistics, they've just been exacerbated by everything students have been going through for the past year. So from this U.S. Department of Education information, 80% of students, they feel overwhelmed by their responsibilities as a student, 80%. 80% of students also report feeling stress on a daily basis. 50%, so half of students rated their mental health below average or poor, and 40%, so almost half of students, they fail to seek help for any of the issues or concerns they're having. So this growing need among students that we serve, it means that student affairs professionals and res life professionals, they're on the front lines of supporting students experiencing these mental health challenges and these obstacles that are impeding their development throughout their time in college. So how does this align with our current student affairs programs and res life practices? So think about it from higher ed student affairs perspective. There are almost 20 million students enrolled in over 4,000 colleges across the US. Are helping skills important to student affairs practice? I'm going to say yes. So if you look from the professional competency areas for student affairs educators from NASPA and ACPA, so one of the 10 content areas is advising and supporting students, and helping skills are foundational to the mastery of that competency. So they are important in that way. Now, shifting through like a res life lens, res life perspective. So staff in residence life, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations of residence halls across the country with more than 3 million beds. So while the position description might appear to be pretty straightforward, we all know working in res life that it is not. On any given day, you can be doing any number of things, mediating a conflict, enforcing policies with students, or responding to like some life or death crisis situation. So some common things we do all the time include administrative duties, mediation, group facilitation, conflict management, and crisis intervention. And clearly helping skills will be integral to success in all of those activities. So if we look at the master's programs that are preparing a lot of res life professionals, so one study examined 290 different student affairs level, master's level programs nationwide, and they found that only 80, or about 28%, required any kind of counseling courses whatsoever. And another study found that the programs that do offer counseling courses, they offer an incomplete curriculum, specifically lacking training in crisis intervention, supervision, mentoring, and mental health knowledge and awareness. So as we can see from all of this, helping skills are critical when working with students, but are not often trained that well or at all. So my goal with the rest of this presentation is to really help you start building your foundations with these skills through learning about theories, learning about counseling micro skills, and seeing a demonstration of those skills. And then at the end, I'm going to recommend a few resources so you can continue your learning if you want to learn more about how to integrate those skills into your day-to-day work. So now we're going to talk about some essential counseling theories that shape helping when you're working with students. So thinking about theoretical frameworks in general, student affairs is really a broad interdisciplinary field, and it pulls from many different theoretical frameworks, primarily as student development theories, but many include theories on management, leadership, supervision, organizational development. So we pull from another number of different frameworks. This interdisciplinary status of the profession, it supports a rationale for utilizing counseling theories when helping individuals or groups of students. So when we think about counseling theories and counseling frameworks, they're really useful in providing an understanding of a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. They can help you understand the root causes of dysfunction or conflict with a student and how to really support them in processing through that dysfunction or conflict that they're going through to make change. So thinking about theoretical frameworks and how they can support us in our work, now we're going to look at a few specific groups or families of counseling theories, start kind of laying the groundwork and building some general understanding of those frameworks and how they can help you in your practices. So primarily among them, one of the very first major theories explaining human behavior is psychodynamic or psychoanalytic theory, who Sigmund Freud founded, and a lot of other theorists added on to over the years. But the premise of psychoanalytic theory, it looks at how the unconscious mind influences thoughts and behaviors. Psychoanalysis, it frequently involves looking at early childhood experiences in order to discover how these events might have shaped the individual and how they contribute to their current actions. So the goal of this therapy and working under this theory is to help people really better understand the unconscious forces that play a role in their current behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. So some professional takeaways for us as res life professionals. This approach can really remind us that of the potential impact of unconscious factors that lie beneath the surface of problems. This can encourage us to listen to the music and not just the words when working with students, trying to see beneath what they're saying. Also, basic concepts from this theory, such as defense mechanisms, which are behaviors that people use to separate themselves from unpleasant events, actions, and thoughts. Mechanisms like that, they can help provide a framework for really understanding the various ways students might cope with past and current issues. The next set of theories that are really important are cognitive behavioral theories. So cognitive behavioral theories, they're an extension of behaviorism. So behaviorism is an approach to psychology that emerged in the early 20th century, and it was a reaction to that psychoanalytic theory we just talked about. So rather than focusing on all those underlying unconscious, subconscious conflicts, behaviorism really focuses on the observable, overt behaviors that are learned from the environment. Cognitive theories really broaden behaviorism, and that got by focusing on thoughts and cognitive processes and how they can influence emotions and behaviors. So cognitive behavioral theories, they really focus on replacing irrational and unproductive thoughts and ideas with more productive ideas and attitudes in the people you're working with. So some professional takeaways from this theory for us is that this theory can be really useful because it focuses on behaviors of students, the behaviors that we are already observing and dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Secondly, this approach provides an array of just really easy to learn and utilize techniques that can be employed in a number of settings. One of which is addressing something called cognitive distortions. And these are just irrational, inflated thoughts or beliefs that distort a person's perception of reality, usually in a negative way. So the next set of theories are humanistic theories. And these theories developed in response to the last two we talked about, psychoanalysis and behaviorism, because those two were seen by some to be just too negative and pessimistic about human nature. In contrast, humanistic theories, they're really more optimistic. They're focused on the human capacity to overcome hardship, pain, and despair. Humanistic theories, they share a perspective that emphasizes looking at the whole person and the uniqueness of each individual. Humanistic theories, they begin with an existential assumption that people have free will and they're just motivated to achieve and self-actualize or get to their fullest and highest potential they can. So this theory thinks that, or supposes that when provided with empathy, genuineness, and unconditional positive regard, people can resolve their own issues and solve their own problems. Some professional takeaways from this one is the underlying philosophy of the humanistic theories is already really pretty consistent in student affairs practice. The potential for growth, student responsibility, and the importance of creating and maintaining mutually respectful and trusting relationships. So utilizing this approach with students, it can really help them feel understood, respected, and accepted by the person they're interacting with. And that can really support them in safely exploring their feelings and resolving any issues they have. So next, moving away to a kind of a different perspective, we have systems or family theories. So these theories move the focus from intrapersonal to interpersonal. They really emphasize an individual, their interactions with their family or any other social units, like the students, like their roommates, their suite mates, students they're living with, students in classes, people they work with. So whatever social systems they're in. And the degree to which these interactions in their social systems contribute to, maintain, and define an individual's psychological problems and issues. So when systems thinking, which evaluates the parts of a system in relation to a whole, is applied to a group, it suggests that behavior is both often informed by and inseparable from the functioning of a system in which one resides. So basically, just a person is impacted by their system, it causes and perpetuates issues. And only by working on the system can you help an individual. So the goal of this theory is to bring about awareness and change into a social system as much as it is an individual. Some takeaways, some professional takeaways from this theory is that first, it really makes it clear the importance of environmental variables in the creation or maintenance of problems. And second, it recognizes the importance and impact of the family and familial support or lack of support, familial stress, all of that on a student's lives. And one of our final kind of sets or families of theories are more social justice related theories. So these theories, they really start with questioning the relevance of all the theories we've talked about so far, their relevance to women and other marginalized groups. And they advocate that those theories be applied in a culturally meaningful way. So accounting for culture in helping in human interaction is foundational to the philosophy of a lot of social justice related theories, which assume that the causes and maintenance of problems in people's lives and distress they endure, it must be understood and treated within a sociocultural context. So this set of theories, it really aims to help people see the societal roots of issues, strengthen and empower individuals, and enhance people's positive perceptions of the identities they may hold and identify with. So some professional takeaways from this theory, like the humanistic theories, social justice related theories, they've already done a lot to inform and influence our student affairs practice. We really utilize these in a lot of things that we do. This set of theories, they also provide more awareness and reinforcement what's already been introduced and discussed in student affairs programs. So finally, kind of taking all those together, we can utilize a holistic, integrative, or eclectic model. And that kind of model is just drawn from many sources. So you can draw from all the things we've talked about. So to work from this kind of model, it really synthesizes some of those assumptions, principles, and techniques together from many viewpoints to help create your own viewpoint to systematically and consistently apply them in helping situations when working with students. So the underlying philosophy behind this approach is that you don't have to use any one specific theoretical technique or theoretical perspective. You can really use what's best for the student in the moment. So some professional takeaway is it lets you be more adaptive when working with students, which kind of resonates with what we already do in student affairs, being adaptive and working with students in the way they need the most. It also focuses on holistic assessment, and that it really looks at looking at the student as a whole and figuring out what works best when working with them. So it's just more adaptive and holistic overall. So putting all this together, these theories really provide a framework. The idea is to help you better understand who your students are and why they do what they do. Finding a theoretical framework that resonates with you can help provide you with a number of techniques to utilize when working with students, as well as helping you support students in understanding themselves better and solving their own problems. So that's the idea behind this kind of theoretical exploration. Oh. So now we're going to move past theory to talk about how to be a multiculturally competent helper, counselor, supporter of students and the work you do. And what's important to that from a counseling perspective is multicultural competence. So when we think about college campuses, they've become increasingly diverse and cultures exist on various levels on college campuses. Student affairs professionals, we should really be aware of the power of the internal and external dimensions associated with cultural identities for students in our society and apply considerations that take care not to perpetuate marginalization. So developing multicultural competence, that includes awareness, knowledge, and skills, and it's necessary for student affairs professionals and for their work in a culturally diverse campus environment. So thinking about awareness. Awareness in multicultural competence, that entails awareness of your own assumptions and biases, your own values, understanding the worldview of others, information about various cultural groups, and really developing appropriate intervention strategies and techniques. And this awareness comes from reflection, learning, and seeking out new experiences and new points of view. So listed below are some starter reflection questions that you could use to engage in some of that foundational reflection and thought to really develop your own multicultural awareness. The next is knowledge. Knowledge comes from really remaining up to date on cultural issues and current news that may impact diverse college students. It's also suggested that student affairs professionals increase their content knowledge and familiarize themselves with cultural terms and ideas to increase their knowledge base. So listed below is also a list of terms and ideas that student affairs professionals should be aware of and learn more about to increase their knowledge. And I can share this presentation at the end as well if anybody wants these terms or reflection questions or anything to kind of move forward in their own development with. And finally, we have the skills. So being multiculturally skilled, it can mean a number of things. It can mean being able to communicate across cultures, going beyond just graduate program training in regards to culture, being able to quickly and easily recover from cultural errors and cultural corrections, and utilizing multicultural awareness and knowledge to design and implement culturally relevant and meaningful interventions. But most importantly, multicultural skills include the ability to deconstruct the embedded cultural assumptions and the theories and practices we are utilizing every day in student affairs. And finally, so putting it all together, the goal is to have multicultural competence, which encompasses awareness, skills, and knowledge. And while that's important, we need to build onto that idea and shift from competence to something called cultural humility. Cultural humility, it adds to or modifies competence in three ways I think are very important. One, it really focuses in on that deliberate reflection of your values and biases. It really enforces that and really emphasizes how that's really important. It also stresses that that reflection and that learning, they're really a lifelong process. You're never going to get to a point where you're confident and you're done. It's just something you have to do your whole life to keep developing and learning about people that hold different identities than you or hold the same identities as you. And then finally, a third really important component of it is it shifts the power to the person being helped, and it lets them define their cultural identity for themselves and how it impacts them in their life. Okay, so now that we've established how to be a multiculturally competent and counselor or helper, we're going to move into some micro counseling skills that you can use and take back to your practice and interactions with students that you have every day. So this is the Microskills Hierarchy. This is something that we went over in one of my very first counseling techniques courses. It's got a list of all the skills that you can learn and utilize when working with students or working with clients, whatever area you're in. We are not going to go through all of this. We are going to go through just 3 important parts that can be utilized in our work with students. We're going to go through the conditions for helping. Then we're going to go through the basic listening sequence, a set of skills you can use when interacting with students. And then we're going to go through a little bit of, we call it the 5-stage model. It's modified a little bit for work in our student affairs practice, but it's similar to what we do in counseling practice as well. So first we have conditions for helping. So approaching student interactions with empathy, positive regard, and genuineness, they are central to establishing relationships into the helping process. Being present and empathetically responding to a student is key. And sometimes there can be a little confusion between sympathy and empathy. So just to clarify, sympathy is an expression of concern for a person in distress, while empathy really focuses on feeling their same emotions and communicating a sense of care and understanding regarding their experience. So it's feeling it with them. Also, to build relationships, one must communicate positive regard. And that's just an expression of appreciation of a person as a unique and worthwhile individual. So positive regard, it really includes respecting a person's values, their perspectives, their feelings, their wishes, and thoughts without any conditions and exhibiting warmth. And then finally, in helping relationships, genuineness, it really encompasses being honest and authentic and communicating with the person you're working with. So being genuine is behaving in a way without any front or facade, being fully aware of one's feelings at the moment, and being able to really communicate those feelings openly. So once you've met these conditions for helping, you've found your empathy, positive regard, and genuineness when working with a student. That's when we can employ the basic listening sequence, is what we call it. It's 5 sets of helping skills we can utilize in everything we do. So 1 of 5 is attending behaviors, and those are really easy. Just we call it 3 V's and B. And these attending behaviors, it's just giving your full focus to a student you're interacting with, utilizing these 4 behaviors. So the first V is visual contact, or it's really looking individuals in the eye and speaking with them. Eye contact denotes focus and attention. It shows that you are connected to the person you're working with. The second is vocal quality. So your vocal tone and your speech rate, they can indicate a great deal about how you feel about the person you're speaking with. So it's important to make sure you're moderating them. The third is verbal tracking. That refers to really staying on the student's topic, so moving with them as they're speaking. So you want to try not to divert them from whatever they're talking about, but if for some reason in the conversation and the interactions you're having, you do have to change, you want to make sure you make those changes with purpose and for a reason. And the final part of attending behaviors is your body language. Body language and facial expression. So you want to be attentive and genuine, face clients naturally, lean slightly forward, have an expressive face, and use facilitative, encouraging gestures, not like closed off or defensive gestures. So 2 of 5 of the basic listening sequence is observational skills. So observational skills, they are critical for getting all of the information you can out of a student, as well as really understanding how they see the world. And they include a few different things. So nonverbal behaviors, such as changes in eye contact, body language, or vocal patterns, they can have small or large implications. They can be something as small as like shifting interest or a little discomfort, to really like showing I'm done with this topic. There's really a lot of emotions going on under the surface, so they can really indicate a lot without saying anything. And then verbal behavior is also really important. So not just what the student is saying, but how they're saying it can be very important. You want to listen for content, obviously, but you want to listen to really how and why students may shift from topic to topic, the level of abstraction they use when they're talking about a topic, and the types of statements they're making. So people tend to use certain words to describe their behavior or the situations they're in. And noting these descriptive words, especially any repetitive themes that come up, can be really helpful in working with a student and really understanding their point of view. Finally, discrepancies are something that can be really key when working with a student. So there can be discrepancies between nonverbal and verbal behaviors, between two statements they made, between a statement they made and something they've done, or between any kind of goals they have. They can have incompatible goals. So identifying any of those, it really might help you understand the student situation better, but it might also be the key to really helping them understand themselves better. And finally, mirroring can be very important because mirroring actions and speech patterns, they can indicate a positive social interaction going on between you and a student. So, and also like the lack of mirroring can really indicate that there might be an issue going on that you don't know about. So that's something important to be aware of. So 3 of 5 with basic listening sequence is questioning. So questioning is something we all know how to do. Questioning allows us to gain information, increase our understanding, and really explore issues and concerns with the student. Effective questioning can really guide a conversation and assist the student in telling their story and helping you understand their point of view in their world. So there are two types of questions. There are closed and open. Closed questions can really be answered in a few words, like multiple choice question, a yes, no. And those are really just used to gain information, getting a repeat or confirmation of information, or asking if your assessment of a situation is accurate. While in contrast, open questions, they're really asked when you need elaboration about something. So their answers aren't limited to just a few words. And these questions, they can focus on thoughts, feelings, reflecting, or exploration. Open questions really can encourage a student to discuss without any restraint, and they can really help you better understand the student's situation. Oh, sorry. 4 of 5 basic listening sequence are encouraging, paraphrasing, and summarizing. So these are active listening skills, and they're at the very center of the basic listening sequence. So when we attend and use these skills, students really feel heard, they open up, and they become more ready for change and support. So talking about these three quickly, encouragers, they are just verbal and nonverbal expressions the helper can use to promote a student to talk. So they might be verbal, such as repeating words or short statements from what they've said, or they could be simple nonverbals like head nods, smiling, anything like that to encourage a student to keep sharing. Paraphrasing or reflection of content, that usually consists of 4 parts. It's a sentence stem, repeating a key word, the essence of what the person was saying, and a checkout for accuracy. So it's a quick little check-in that you got what they were saying. Summarizing, instead, it really pulls together and organizes a student conversation, and it's key to understanding the student's world. Summarizing integrates a lot of things. It integrates content, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So it's similar to a paraphrase, but it's just really over a longer span of time, incorporating a lot more. And the 5th part of the basic listening sequence is really just reflecting feelings. So reflecting feelings, that involves observing emotions, naming emotions, and really repeating emotions back to the student. Reflecting feelings and emotions to students, it can really assure them that they're being listened to and understood, which is great encouragement for them to keep talking about their issues and keep sharing with you. Reflection can also help a student own and accept their own feelings. Because pretty often people really tend to talk about feelings as if they're not there, as if they're kind of disconnected from them. So reflecting them back onto a student can really help them internalize them and identify with them. Okay, so that is the basic listening sequence. Those are the 5 sets of skills, or 5 skills that you can utilize in your interactions with students. And then you can use them through this 5-stage model working with students. So we're going to break this down really quick. So step 1, you want to open a meeting, create students, build rapport. I'm sure everyone talks about building rapport, but it's just super important to do that. And really, no matter what you're meeting with a student for, if it's like an RA one-on-one, if it's a conduct issue, if it's a conflict mediation, it's really important in developing relationships and really working with students to really help them feel seen as a person. And that building rapport piece is critical. So after you build rapport and you started to develop that relationship with them, that's when you want to check in. You want to clarify that you both understand where you're starting from and the reason that you're meeting, because I mean, if you don't, things could really go awry if you have two really different starting points. You just want to make sure you're on the same page before you go further. Then after that, you move into the working phase. That's when you start using more of these skills, asking questions. You really want to gain understanding and really understand the student's point of view and their perceptions of the world. And you can do that by using all the skills we just talked about. So then after you have that understanding, that's when you can move into action planning. So that's really helping them solve the problems or whatever the situation is. That's when you would go into like, you would elicit ideas and strategies from the student, maybe ways they've handled situations similar to it before. You would brainstorm with them and make suggestions and help them set goals. But the whole goal behind all of that action planning is you are helping them do it for themselves. You're not doing it for them. And then after that would be closing the meeting. And that's when you really summarize everything that's happened so far. And you clarify where they go from here, what the next steps are. If it's something they do independently, or if you need to plan future meetings and connections with that student. Okay, so I know we just covered a lot, but in our helping skills review, these are the three main points or the three main chunks of information we covered. So the conditions for helping, you want to approach your students with empathy, genuineness, and positive regard. The basic listening sequence and set of skills you can use with students. Those are attending behaviors, observation skills, questioning, encouraging, paraphrasing, and summarizing, and then reflecting feelings. You can use those in that 5-stage model. So now we are going to look at these skills, how they're utilized in a brief demonstration. So the plan initially for our program or this session was to do some practice ourselves, but logistically and due to time constraints, that really wasn't a super great idea. So we are going to watch a role play of a helper, a counselor working with a student. So while you're looking at this, think about the skills that we just talked about and just see what you can pull out, see what you notice. We can debrief about it after.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm Bianca.
Bianca, you call me Tom.
All right. Hey, Tom.
So Bianca, you're how old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
20 years old.
Yep. Still in college.
So where you went to school at?
College in Charleston.
Charleston. And what do you think you're going to be? What are you studying out there?
Studying psychology. Yeah. It hopes to be a counselor. After I'm finished.
Okay. During our session, we're going to take some notes.
Okay.
Just try to let me know, and we can go from there.
All right.
So you're going to college in Charleston, studying psychology, 20 years old. Do you have any family living here with you?
My family's from Ridgeville, so a lot of them stay here. I have a few family members in Charleston, but
Right. Okay, and are you living at home or living on campus?
on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
With my best friend here.
And just remind me, male, female best friend?
Female.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Very good. So what brings you into that?
Oh, Tom, what brings me in today is it's been a lot going on, with school and everything, and then I have a boyfriend, of course.
Right.
So we were doing good. Everything was going good, nice. He would come visit on the weekends and during the week. But then I found out that he was talking to my best friend.
Okay. What's your boyfriend's name, by the way?
His name is Bill.
Okay. All right.
And my best friend Shayla. I found out that they were talking. Shayla left her phone on the dresser.
Right.
She went to use the restroom because I think she went to get washed for her class. So I happened to walk by and her phone lit up and it said Bill. It's like Bill. So when she got out, I kind of, questioned her about who's this Bill? Is this my Bill? So she told me or whatever, and she kind of broke down that Bill was trying to talk to her, trying to come on to her, and I asked her when did it start. She said it started sometime in November. So I was like, so why did you not tell me before now? It's February. she didn't want to ruin the relationship, so she just wanted to keep it a secret, thinking that it would go away.
So the relationship, you want to ruin the relationship with you or with Bill?
She didn't want to ruin our friendship.
Okay.
Should I say not relationship, but our friendship. She didn't want to ruin that. And I respect her for that, but I think if you're talking to my boyfriend or my boyfriend's trying to talk to you, then you should kind of tell me that before before too late. I'm going to wait till February and I had to stumble upon it. I feel like you should have told me.
How does that make, excuse me, how do you feel about that?
I feel betrayed. Like, this is my best friend. We go to college together, we grew together, and you see me every day, and you've been talking to my wife since November. You didn't think to tell me. Like, I feel hurt. Like, it really hurts me inside because that's my best friend and that's my boyfriend. So it really hurts me. It really hurts me.
So just so I'm understanding what's going on. You're attending the college of Charleston. You and your girlfriend are roommates. You've been roommates or been friends for many years, and your boyfriend Bill is making the moves on your girlfriend Sheila. She hasn't told you. Okay. Did Bill say anything to you about this?
He mentioned Sheila one time, but he was just like, Sheila was trying to come on to him, or she was trying to make moves at him. But now that he said that and she said what she said, it's kind of hard to believe any of it. Because I'm like, so which one is it? And then I kind of want to believe Sheila a little more because we have history. We've been friends since elementary school. And me and Bill, we've been together for a year now. So I know Sheila a little more, so I kind of have that confidence in her that she's not going to lie to me. But, I mean, it's just kind of hard to tell because we're at different places in life now. We're older now, so it's like, I don't know what to do. I really don't.
But what if you did tell us?
If I did, it would have made the situation a little more calmer, a little more smoother. Because right now, it's like I'm hurt, I'm sad, I'm confused. I don't know what to believe. But if I did know what to believe, or if I did know the truth, it would have eased some of the confusion. I wouldn't be as confused. I'd still be angry, of course, and hurt. But I don't think the hurt wouldn't feel so intense. It wouldn't be as bad because I would know what to do. I would know how to make the next step or what is the next step to take. I would know how to do that, either break up with him and not, leave our relationship where it is, or kind of confront Sheila and let her know this is not what you need to be doing. And, just if I knew, but right now I'm just hurt, sad, confused. And then on top of that, I have to still go to class. So it's kind of taking a toll on my classwork as well.
It sounds like you're a little bit depressed.
I am.
Angry. Wow. Have you and Bill discussed the matter?
We hadn't discussed it in detail. The only discussion we had when he was saying, early on, some time ago when Sheila was trying to come on to him. That's the only discussion. And I kind of like monitored it, and I looked, I would kind of look at her, just to see nothing was going on. But everything seemed fine. She didn't tell me anything. Everything was going good. So since then, I hadn't stressed the issue to Bill. I just left it where it was. Because I thought everything, kind of panned out and everything was going good. But come February, everything's not going good.
So tell me how your relationship is with Sheila now. Are you still roommates?
We're still roommates because I feel like we have history, so I can't just ruin a good friendship. We've got, I would say, 19 plus years of friendship, and I don't want to let that go. And it's the middle of the semester, and I'm like, I don't want to find another roommate, so that's another factor. So I'm like, yeah, I'll keep Sheila just to kind of monitor things, but I still want to really believe her and trust her. But I don't know, Tom, I'm just at a loss for words because it really hurts. It really does.
The hurt in your face and your voice. and Bill still seeing each other, or you? How do you feel about that? Are they still a couple, or?
So just due to time constraints, I'm gonna stop it right there. But I think we got to see a lot of interesting things through that. While it wasn't directly a res life experience, we did see like a conflict between friends, between roommates, relationship conflicts, and I think we can hear about that a lot in the work that we do. So thinking about that, so what are your thoughts on the video, or what were some takeaways, just any reactions you might have?
I can go. Hi, Patrick. Great job. So it's really impactful when you actually have that like repeat state, like that time of repeating or paraphrasing with an individual. So when they were saying, okay, so this is what I'm hearing, let's talk more about that. It opens up the door to the student kind of expanding and having the other individual know a little bit more about what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's just that repetition showing, hey, you've been heard, I think can be really powerful. Did anything else stand out for anyone about the helper or the student in the video? If it didn't, we can keep rolling, to be honest. So one last thing, if anyone saw any takeaways or any behaviors that they might take back with them and think, hey, I might try to engage with a student in this way instead in the future. Yeah, Kelly. So Kelly said the helper was reassuring in the conversation and the student opened up over the conversation. And I think like that is a great point because I think sometimes, I know I do this a lot myself, and I try not to. I have a tendency to want to jump in and try to be a fixer and fix things. And I think sometimes we can just take that step back and just reflect and reassure and just open that space up and say we're listening, we can get a lot more out of a student while working with them or anyone working with us, specifically students. And Dana said, agreed. He was very attentive to what the student was saying. And you can see he truly cared. Yeah, that's that positive regard we were talking about. So just approaching students and let them know they're being heard and cared for in the conversation. It's just doing a little, but you can get back a whole lot in return. Okay, so Kelly, we did many of these exercises in grad school and they help prepare for real life conversations. It was helpful to apply what we would learn in class. I agree with that, Kelly. We did a lot of role play. We've done a lot of role play through my counseling program. And personally, I don't like it in the moment, but then after the fact, I realize how much I've learned from it. So I'm never like a huge fan of role play, but it's so impactful and you learn so much through doing it. Okay, so just one more little section to talk about, and then we can close out. So there's some challenges for new helpers or people that are utilizing some of these skills in the work they do. So while student affairs professionals, while we all come with some degree of helping skills, for a lot of us, they're natural. To be the most effective, though, we really need to develop our entire helping skill set. Additionally, we need to know when to best utilize these skills, as well as avoiding certain temptations and fears that can be common when utilizing all these skills. So one temptation can be excessive questioning or fact finding. So when we're asking questions, when we're exploring facts, those are skills that most of us are comfortable with. So, and while they're important, we can sometimes lean into them too heavily. So we aren't police or judges. We're not there to necessarily interrogate a student. Our job is to do our best to really understand the situation from a student's point of view and figure out how we can best support them in a given situation. Another temptation could be emphasizing third parties. So most issues a student will bring to you is going to be interpersonal in nature. It's going to involve some kind of interaction with their friends, with their roommates, with a family member, with a significant other, something with other people. And while other people are going to be part of the problems that you're talking about, that other person isn't in that conversation here that you're having with that student. So we want to avoid shifting the focus too much onto that other person. We want to focus in and be with the student because they're really the one there that we can help in that moment. Another temptation to avoid is premature self-disclosure. So while self-disclosure is a really powerful tool for rapport building, it needs to be used cautiously because we don't want to inadvertently derail what the student was talking about or draw focus from their issues to us because that might make them shut down. And finally, I just mentioned this, premature problem solving. A strong tool in our toolbox as res life professionals, it's fixing problems and getting things done. That is what we do in our profession. But in helping situations, this needs to really be restrained some because, excuse me, like with self-disclosure, trying to, one second. Sorry. Sorry about that. So like with self-disclosure though, trying to advise or fix a situation, it can really stifle exploration that student's going through, and it can keep you from getting to the root of a problem. Okay. In addition to those temptations are some common fears. So sometimes we can have a fear of saying the right thing or making a mistake. So this is a really common fear, but we got to keep in mind, it is not our job to fix a student. You can see from this little diagram right here, helper to student to problem. We are not the problem fixer. We are the one who supports the student in fixing their own problems. So there's no right thing to say. And if you make a mistake, if you feel like you said something wrong, you always have a chance to circle back. As far as silence, silence can be something that someone's really scared of. You can feel uncomfortable. But silence can be really important in giving students time to process what you're talking about and really helping them absorb maybe what's come up when we've reflected feelings and different things back to them. It can be an important tool in really helping them internalize some of what the conversation has been about. Exploring feelings can be really weird for some people. It can be off-putting. And it can feel intrusive to ask about feelings sometimes, but that's not the case. Student validation, it comes from being heard. So when we ask about feelings and we reflect those feelings, it can be really powerful in helping students feel like they're heard, and it can help them share more than they would otherwise. And finally, practicing. We mentioned this a minute ago. Practicing, it is impossible to sharpen these skills through reading and studying through sessions like this. Practicing is super important. Additionally, recording sessions can be a really good way to review the way you've interacted with students and really give you insight into where you might need to develop your skills a little further. Okay, so we covered a lot today. We talked about helping skills in higher ed and student affairs. We reviewed some theoretical frameworks, multicultural competence, and microcounseling skills, and temptations and fears. So all of that is the main content of our session. So does anyone have any questions or comments, anything they'd like to share about anything we talked about? Cool. Well, if not, then I do have 2 book recommendations that if you want to further your knowledge on these topics, these are really great resources that go into helping skills and really how to integrate them in the work we do as student affairs professionals. It's helping college students developing essential support skills for student affairs practice. That's by Amy Reynolds. Then helping skills for working with college students. It's applying counseling theory to student affairs practice. Both very good reads, very informative, and very helpful in integrating these skills into the things we do every day.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah.
Hi. I was going to say, I thought your information was very, very timely. I just saw an article this morning about a school, and now it's one school, but they're revamping their whole RA program and looking at more professionals because of the overload of, like you mentioned, the burden that students are carrying right now. Yes. And so I think between that, and then if those of you that were in the Kentucky State meeting with the legislation going on in Kentucky, like just different things that students are going to not, the RAs potentially are not going to have to do as much counseling per se, or aren't equipped to do it. And so I think your information was very timely to support young professionals that are going to be in that hands-on role in the residence hall. So great, timely topic.
Thank you very much. And I agree 100%. It is so important, especially considering the last year and how the difficulties everyone has been going through anyway has just been magnified so much that having and utilizing these skills can be crucial when working with students. Cool. Well, if no one else has any questions or comments, then that is really all for me. Thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this with everyone.